A backhanded compliment is one of the most dangerous and corrosive forms of disrespect because it hides in plain sight. It doesn't roar, it doesn't threaten, it doesn't even always sound negative at first. In fact, it wears the mask of something positive, something harmless, which makes it so much more deceptive and damaging. Think about the time someone looked at you and said, "Wow, you actually look good today," or "You're pretty smart for someone your age," or "I didn't expect you to pull that off." On the surface, it sounds like a compliment. It's wrapped in sugar, but once you taste it, there's poison underneath. This is not kindness. This is not casual humor. This is a deliberate attempt to undermine you while forcing you to smile and accept it. And the most dangerous part, many people do accept it. They laugh it off, they roll with it, they pretend not to notice the sting, and in doing so, they silently give permission for it to happen again. What you need to understand is that a backhanded compliment is a test. It's a test of how much disrespect you're willing to tolerate without defending yourself. It's a probe. The person delivering it is gauging your response. If you laugh, if you let it go, they've just learned they can keep disrespecting you. Not directly, but subtly, in ways that are harder to call out. That's why it's so dangerous. It's covert. You can't always confront it with anger because it's designed to make you look sensitive if you do. That's the trap. If you say something, they'll brush it off with, "Relax, I was just joking," or "You're taking it the wrong way." They'll turn it around to make you look unreasonable while they continue to chip away at your confidence. And that is why you must learn to recognize it and deal with it directly but calmly, because the longer you allow these small insults in disguise to pass, the more they accumulate and weigh you down. The truth is, every backhanded compliment is really just an insult that someone didn't have the courage to say out loud. They wanted to cut you, but they didn't want to look like the villain, so they disguise it with a smile. But you cannot afford to let people weaponize politeness against you. The only way to destroy a backhanded compliment is to expose it for what it is. You don't have to lash out, you don't have to lose your cool, but you do have to shine a light on it. For example, if someone says, "You look great today for once," you can respond with, "So what exactly do you mean by that?" Simple, direct, calm. That one question forces them to either admit the insult or backtrack. You've put the weight of accountability back on their shoulders without raising your voice. That's power. That's how you destroy someone politely. Not by meeting disrespect with aggression, but by making them confront the truth they tried to sneak past you. And let me be clear, when you tolerate backhanded compliments, you teach people how to treat you. If you let one slide, they'll test you again, and each time you stay silent, you lose a little more ground. Soon, people around you start believing it's acceptable to disrespect you in small ways because you've shown them you won't push back. Before you know it, it becomes the norm, and you're left wondering why people don't take you seriously, why they keep undermining you. The answer is simple: you trained them to. Not because you're weak, not because you don't deserve respect, but because you didn't shut it down the first time it happened. That's why this matters so much. It's not about one remark. It's about the standard you set for every interaction that follows. Understand this. Self-respect is non-negotiable. And that means not allowing even the smallest disguised insult to slide past you. Because those small moments add up, and before long, they shape how people perceive you and how you perceive yourself. A backhanded compliment is not just words, it's a strategy. It's meant to create doubt, to lower your guard, to make you second-guess your worth while pretending to lift you up. That's manipulation, plain and simple. And you don't defeat manipulation by exploding in anger, you defeat it by exposing it with clarity. That's why calm, direct responses are so powerful. They reveal the truth without giving the other person room to twist it back on you. They stop the game before it even begins. You don't have to fight every insult with fire, but you do have to refuse to play along with disrespect disguised as kindness. The next time someone hands you a backhanded compliment, don't laugh, don't shrug it off, and don't let it sit in your mind like a splinter. Call it out with composure. Make them explain themselves. And once you've seen their true intention, you get to decide how much space they deserve in your life. That's how you protect your self-worth. That's how you stop subtle disrespect in its tracks. That's how you destroy the game without raising your voice, By refusing to let anyone hide an insult in a compliment and walk away smiling, interruptions are one of the most silent yet brutal forms of disrespect you will ever face. They may not always come with shouting, insults, or visible hostility, but every time someone cuts you off mid-sentence, they are making a clear statement your voice does not matter as much as theirs. Think about how it feels when you're speaking, pouring your thoughts, sharing your perspective, only to have someone jump in before you even finish. It's not just rude. It's not just careless. It is a deliberate act of taking away your power in that moment. Because when people interrupt you, what they are really doing is trying to assert dominance. They are saying, "My words are more important than yours. My presence outweighs yours. What you have to say can wait, because what I have to say must take the floor right now." That's not just an interruption of your words. It's an interruption of your dignity, and here's the trap many people fall into. You let it slide. You smile, you stop talking, you step back and allow the interrupter to take over the conversation. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. You don't want to create conflict, you want to keep the peace. But every time you do this, you reinforce their behavior. You give them permission to do it again. Before long, you'll notice that in group conversations, your voice gets smaller and smaller until people barely notice when you try to speak. Because you've trained them without realizing it, that cutting you off has no consequences. Silence in the face of an interruption is not kindness, it's surrender. And once you surrender enough times, people no longer see you as a force to be respected. They see you as a background presence that can be silenced at will. But here's what you must understand. Interruptions are not always about rudeness. Sometimes they are about control. There are people who use interruptions as a weapon. They don't just accidentally speak over you. They strategically cut you off to shift the power of the room. They want to control the narrative. They want the spotlight on them. They want to show everyone else that their voice carries more weight than yours. And if you don't stop it, they will keep doing it until you are invisible. That is why tolerating constant interruptions is never an option if you value your self-respect. Respect is not given to the loudest voice in the room, but it is taken away from the quietest one that allows itself to be trampled. So how do you handle it? The answer is not to shout louder, not to get aggressive, not to turn the room into a battle of egos. That only drains your energy and makes you look like you're fighting for scraps of attention. The real power lies in composure. The next time someone cuts you off, stop. Let them finish their intrusion, then calmly say, "I wasn't done speaking, let me finish my point." Simple, clear, firm. You're not begging for respect, you're claiming it. Or even more powerful, you can pause mid-sentence when interrupted, look directly at them, and then continue speaking as if you never lost your place. That silence, that refusal to give up your space, is sharper than any raised voice. You're teaching everyone in the room, not just the interrupter, that your words deserve to be heard all the way through. And don't underestimate how important this is in professional settings. In meetings, negotiations, or group discussions, interruptions are often used to discredit or weaken someone's authority without ever saying it directly. If you let yourself get silenced in those moments, you lose credibility not just in the eyes of the interrupter, but in the eyes of everyone else watching. People pay attention to how you handle being cut off. Do you shrink back, or do you hold your ground? Do you disappear into silence, or do you calmly reclaim your place? The way you handle interruptions sets the tone for how others will treat you in every conversation moving forward. Understand this. Every time you allow someone to cut you off without standing your ground, you are silently telling yourself that your voice doesn't matter. And the more you do it, the more that belief takes root inside you. It's not just about what they're doing to you. It's about what you are doing to yourself. Respect always begins with you. If you don't defend your words, don't expect anyone else to. That's why handling interruptions is about more than communication. It's about self-respect. It's about telling the world through your actions that your presence cannot be muted. Interruptions will always happen. People will talk over you. People will dismiss your words. People will try to silence you. But the difference lies in how you respond. Do you shrink or do you rise? Do you surrender or do you reclaim? The choice is always yours. And the truth is, the person who can destroy interruptions politely without raising their voice is the one who controls the room. Because respect isn't about volume. It's about presence. It's about the unshakable confidence to hold your space, even when someone tries to take it from you. That is power. That is dignity. And that is why you must never tolerate interruptions in silence, because silence in those moments is not peace. It's permission. The silent treatment is one of the most subtle, but most dangerous forms of disrespect you will ever encounter. It doesn't scream. It doesn't argue. It doesn't throw insults in your face, but it carries a message that cuts deeper than words. When someone deliberately ignores you, withdraws from speaking, or pretends you don't exist, they are not just creating space, they are punishing you. It's not silence meant for peace, it's silence used as a weapon. They are saying, "You are not worth my voice. You don't deserve my acknowledgement. You are beneath my response." And make no mistake, the silent treatment is not about calmness or boundaries, it's about control. It's a manipulative tool designed to make you feel small, anxious, and desperate for their attention. What makes this act of disrespect so dangerous is how easily it can twist your own mind against you. When someone stonewalls you or gives you silence, you start to wonder, what did I do wrong? Why are they ignoring me? How do I fix this? You begin to take responsibility for their behavior, as if their lack of communication is your fault. This is how the silent treatment traps you. It forces you to chase after validation. It pressures you to earn back a voice that was deliberately withheld from you. And if you're not careful, you start to internalize the idea that being ignored is something you deserve, when in reality it's never about you, it's about their need to control you. The silent treatment works like poison because it doesn't just shut you out, it destabilizes your emotions. It creates an invisible war inside you. You replay conversations in your head, you analyze every detail, you bend over backward trying to figure out what you did wrong. And while you're busy punishing yourself with guilt and confusion, the person who gave you silence is watching, enjoying the power they hold over you. That's the hidden agenda behind this act. It's never about solving a problem. It's about establishing dominance. They want you to feel powerless, to break your confidence, to make you feel that your value depends on their recognition. And the more you accept it, the more they will use it against you. But here's the truth you need to understand. Silence is not always golden. Sometimes silence is toxic. And when someone uses silence as a punishment, it says far more about them than it ever says about you. Strong, secure people do not need to manipulate others with silence. They communicate, they address, they resolve. People who weaponize silence are not showing strength, they are showing weakness. They are revealing their inability to handle discomfort, to face truth, to hold real conversations. And when you realize this, their silence stops being powerful. Because the moment you stop chasing someone who withholds their voice, you reclaim your own power. So, how do you handle it? The answer is not to beg for communication. The answer is not to plead, not to send message after message, not to shrink into a corner waiting for their approval. The answer is to hold your ground. If someone chooses silence as a weapon, let them keep it. If they want to disappear into silence, let them vanish. Your self-respect cannot afford to bow down to manipulation. You continue speaking your truth. You continue living your life. You continue holding your presence strong. Because the more you ignore their weapon, the less effective it becomes. Silence only works if you give it power, and once you stop reacting, it collapses. And let's be clear, there is a massive difference between healthy space and the silent treatment. Healthy space is mutual. It's about taking a step back to breathe, to think, to process, but it's never about demeaning the other person. The silent treatment, on the other hand, is one-sided punishment. It's not meant for healing, it's meant for control. You must learn to recognize the difference because one protects respect while the other destroys it. And when you recognize that someone is using silence as a tool to diminish you, the only response that honors your self-worth is to refuse to participate in their game. This is why you must never tolerate it, because tolerating it teaches people that they can erase you when they don't get their way. It teaches them that they can withdraw acknowledgement, and you'll come crawling back. It teaches them that your value can be switched on and off like a light. And if you allow this once, it becomes a cycle. A cycle where every conflict, every disagreement, every slight inconvenience is met with silence, and you end up walking on eggshells, afraid to say the wrong thing, afraid to lose their voice again. That is not respect, that is captivity. And you were not born to be caged by someone else's manipulation. Real respect is not measured in how loudly someone praises you, but in how consistently they acknowledge your presence. If they strip you of that acknowledgement as a weapon, they are stripping you of respect itself. And if you value yourself, you cannot allow it. You must be willing to stand tall, even if it means walking alone. You must be willing to say, if your silence is your way of controlling me, then keep it, because I refuse to be controlled. That is how you destroy the silent treatment, by refusing to let it dictate your worth. Because your worth has never been tied to someone else's voice. It has always lived inside of you. The silent treatment is not just silence. It's an attack wrapped in quietness. And once you see it for what it is, you will never fall for its trap again. You will never let it eat away at your confidence. You will never give it the power to define you. Because you will understand that silence as punishment is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of their weakness. And the strongest thing you can do is not to chase it, not to beg for it, but to rise above it with unshakable dignity. Mocking disguised as jokes is one of the most insidious and subtle forms of disrespect you can ever face, because it hides behind a mask of humor. On the surface, it looks like laughter, it sounds playful, it even feels harmless at first, but beneath the laugh there is a dagger. When someone consistently makes you the punchline of their jokes, when every conversation is turned into an opportunity to take a shot at you and then cover it up with, "Relax, I was just joking," what they're really doing is testing the limits of your self-respect. It's not humor. It's humiliation camouflaged in a smile. And the dangerous part is, if you don't call it out early, it becomes normalized, and you become the person who's always laughed at, but never taken seriously. This act of disrespect is particularly damaging because it's subtle enough to make you doubt yourself. When someone mocks you through jokes, you hesitate to confront them because you're not sure if you're overreacting. You ask yourself, am I being too sensitive? Maybe they didn't mean it like that. That's exactly how the disrespect grows, through your hesitation. They rely on you second guessing your feelings, and while you're busy questioning yourself, they continue chipping away at your dignity. What they call a joke you feel is a cut, and if you let it slide, that cut gets deeper every time until you start believing that maybe you deserve to be laughed at. Mocking disguised as jokes is also strategic because it gives the mocker a shield. If you ever challenge them, they can easily retreat behind their favorite line, "You can't take a joke." With that one sentence, they shift the blame onto you. They paint themselves as the light-hearted one, and you as the uptight one, and suddenly you're the problem, not them. This is manipulation in its purest form, because it's designed to silence you, to make you feel guilty for defending yourself, and to keep the cycle of disrespect alive under the guise of humor. The truth is, real humor builds people up, it doesn't tear them down. Real jokes make people feel included, not excluded. Real laughter brings people together. It doesn't isolate someone as the target. When humor is used to belittle, to embarrass, to ridicule, it's no longer humor. It's cruelty dressed up as entertainment. And the cruelest part is that it often happens in front of others. They make you the center of their joke. The group laughs. And suddenly you are not just disrespected by one person. You are humiliated in front of many. That is the hidden cruelty of mocking disguised as jokes. It's not just about the words, it's about the public stage they put you on to watch you shrink while everyone else laughs. The longer you allow these jokes to go unchecked, the more you train people how to treat you. If you laugh along just to keep the peace, if you smile through the sting just to avoid conflict, you are teaching them that it's acceptable to make you the target. And once they know you'll tolerate it, the disrespect doesn't decrease. It escalates. The jokes get sharper, the mockery more frequent, the laughter louder, until you are no longer respected as a person but remembered only as the punchline. This is why tolerating it is so dangerous, because it doesn't just damage how others see you, it damages how you see yourself. So how do you deal with this subtle but cutting form of disrespect? The answer is not to laugh along, not to stay silent, and not to over-explain your hurt. The answer is to calmly but firmly set the boundary. You don't need to attack back or create a scene, but you must make it clear that you are not a prop for someone else's amusement. Sometimes it can be as simple as refusing to laugh, letting the silence speak louder than their joke. Sometimes it's stating, "That's not funny to me," without hesitation. The moment you stop giving the reaction they're fishing for, the moment you stop playing along, you strip the joke of its power. Because the truth is, the only reason these mocking jokes survive is because the audience participates. Once you remove your cooperation, the disrespect loses oxygen. It's important to understand that standing up for yourself in these moments doesn't make you sensitive, it makes you strong. People who say, "It's just a joke," are often the ones who cannot handle being challenged. They dish out disrespect wrapped in humor, but cannot take accountability when called out. That's not strength, that's cowardice. Real strength is owning your words. Real strength is being able to joke without wounding. And real strength is respecting the boundaries of others. By refusing to tolerate mockery disguised as humor, you are not only protecting your self-respect, you are teaching others what strength truly looks like. And here's the deeper truth. People who mock you with jokes are often revealing their own insecurity. They need to pull someone else down to feel taller. They need to shine a spotlight on your flaws, whether real or imagined, so they can hide their own. Mockery is rarely about you, it's about them. But if you let it continue, you allow their insecurity to become your burden. You end up carrying their weakness as your shame. That is why you cannot let it pass. Because every time you allow yourself to be the punchline, you silence your own voice and give power to theirs. Never forget that your dignity is worth more than anyone's laugh. You are not here to be entertainment at your own expense. You are not here to be the easy target in someone else's comedy show. You are here to be respected. And respect is non-negotiable. When you make it clear that mocking disguised as jokes will never be tolerated in your presence, you rise above the disguise. You strip away the humor and expose the truth. That it was never about laughter. It was always about control. And once you see it for what it really is, you can respond with clarity, with strength, and with an unshakable refusal to be anyone's punchline ever again. Backhanded compliments are one of the most subtle and poisonous ways people show you disrespect, because they wear a mask of kindness, but carry the sting of insult. On the surface, they sound like praise. They are delivered with a smile, often in a tone that pretends to be supportive, but deep down you know it doesn't feel right. Instead of lifting you up, it leaves you questioning yourself, wondering if you were actually just insulted. That's the power of a backhanded compliment. It's disrespect that hides behind the disguise of flattery, and if you don't recognize it for what it is, it slowly chips away at your confidence. A backhanded compliment usually comes in forms like, "You look great for your age," or, "Wow, you're so smart. I didn't expect that from you." Notice how it appears positive, but carries an undercurrent of judgment. They're telling you look good, but only compared to the stereotype they have of you. They're acknowledging your intelligence, but by lowering the bar first, so their compliment feels like a surprise. This is not real praise. This is a veiled insult that makes you second guess whether to say thank you or to be offended. And that's exactly why people use it. It's designed to confuse you, to keep you off balance, and to make their disrespect slip through unnoticed. The danger of tolerating backhanded compliments is that you begin to internalize them. Even if you brush it off in the moment, the words stay with you. Over time, you start believing those subtle digs. You may start thinking, maybe I do look good only compared to others, or maybe I'm not as capable as I thought. That seed of doubt, planted over and over through disguised insults, grows into insecurity. And the person who gave you that backhanded compliment, they get to play innocent, pretending they meant well while they chip away at your confidence one kind word at a time. What makes backhanded compliments even more destructive is the way they manipulate social dynamics. Because they are framed as praise, you risk looking defensive or oversensitive if you call them out. If you say, "That was rude," the person can quickly retreat into, "I was just trying to give you a compliment." They shift the narrative so you look like the one who can't take positivity. And suddenly you're caught in a trap where they insult you. You feel the sting, but you can't respond without looking unreasonable. This keeps you silent, which is exactly the outcome they want. They get to disrespect you openly while hiding under the shield of politeness. The truth is, genuine compliments don't come with conditions or comparisons. Real praise is clear, uplifting, and free of hidden barbs. If someone says, "You look great," there's no sting. If they say, "You did an amazing job," it stands on its own. Genuine compliments don't make you hesitate. They don't leave you wondering if you've just been insulted, and they certainly don't rely on lowering you first just to build you up second. A backhanded compliment, on the other hand, always does both. It lifts you with one hand and cuts you down with the other. That duality is what makes it so toxic. So how do you deal with backhanded compliments? The key is to stop rewarding them. Most people respond automatically with a polite, "Thank you," even when the compliment is laced with poison. That gives the speaker permission to keep doing it, because you've shown them that their tactic works. Instead, you have to strip away the disguise. Sometimes that means directly addressing the hidden insult by saying, "What do you mean by that?" Put the weight of explanation back on them. Force them to reveal their true intent. Other times, it means refusing to play along altogether. Don't smile, don't thank them. Don't reward their veiled insult with the reaction they want. Your lack of approval makes them realize their game isn't working. It's also important to understand that backhanded compliments often come from people who are threatened by you. They want to acknowledge your strengths, but they can't do it without cutting you down at the same time. Their insecurity won't allow them to give you pure praise, so they taint it with a jab to protect their own ego. In a way, their insult says more about them than it does about you. But if you let it slide, you allow their insecurity to become your limitation. You carry their weakness as if it were your truth. That is why you cannot tolerate it, not even once. The more you refuse to accept backhanded compliments, the more you strengthen your boundaries. You send a clear message: if you respect me, speak with clarity. If you admire something I've done, say it without adding poison to it. And if you can't give me genuine praise, then keep your words to yourself. By drawing that line, you not only protect your self-respect, you also expose who truly values you and who only pretends to. Because someone who consistently gives backhanded compliments is not a supporter, they are an undercover detractor hiding in plain sight. Remember, your worth is not defined by anyone else's disguised words. A backhanded compliment is not a reflection of you, it is a reflection of the person giving it. It's their jealousy, their insecurity, their need to make you smaller so they can feel bigger. Don't carry their weight. Don't let their disguised disrespect live rent-free in your head. When you see a backhanded compliment for what it is, you strip it of its power. You recognize that it is not flattery, it's an insult pretending to be kindness. And once you see through it, you can rise above it without letting it cut you again. The bottom line is simple: never tolerate disguised disrespect. If someone cannot respect you openly, if they cannot compliment you without wounding you, then their words have no place in your life. Protect your dignity fiercely, because it is far too valuable to be chipped away by someone else's insecurity hidden in false kindness. Constant interruptions are one of the most subtle but damaging forms of disrespect, because they silently tell you that your words, your time, and your thoughts are less important than theirs. Every time someone cuts you off mid-sentence, they send a message without even having to say it directly: what you have to say doesn't matter. And the longer you tolerate it, the more you teach people that your voice can be silenced without consequence. That's why interruptions are not just about communication. They're about power, and when you allow constant interruptions to go unchecked, you surrender authority over your own presence. Think about what happens when someone repeatedly cuts you off. You're explaining an idea, you're sharing a perspective, maybe you're telling a story, and before you can even finish, they jump in and hijack the conversation. Maybe they change the subject. Maybe they finish your sentence for you, as if they know what you were about to say. Or maybe they talk over you altogether, raising their voice to drown yours out. Whatever the form, the effect is the same. They diminish your contribution. They minimize your place in the room, and they establish themselves as the dominant voice. And it's easy to brush it off the first few times, to laugh, to excuse it as their personality. But constant interruptions are not innocent quirks. They are subtle acts of disrespect that chip away at your confidence and train others to ignore you. What's even more destructive is the psychological effect it has on you. When you're interrupted enough, you start to hesitate before speaking. You second-guess whether what you're about to say is valuable enough. You begin shrinking in conversations, keeping your ideas to yourself, letting others dominate while you fade into the background. That silence doesn't come from humility, it comes from conditioning. You've been taught through repetition that speaking up will only lead to being cut off, so why bother? And this is how constant interruptions rob you not only of your voice in the moment, but of your confidence in the long term. It turns you into a spectator in your own conversations instead of a participant who commands attention. And here's the truth: People who interrupt constantly often do it for one of two reasons: control or insecurity. Some interrupt because they want to dominate. They see every conversation as a competition, and cutting you off is their way of asserting dominance. Others interrupt out of insecurity, because they can't stand the silence of listening. They fear losing the spotlight, so they rush to fill it with their own words. Either way, the effect on you is the same. You are left silenced, minimized, and disrespected. The motive doesn't excuse the behavior, and tolerating it only guarantees it will continue. So how do you handle constant interruptions without lowering yourself to their level? The answer is presence and boundary. First, presence. You must hold your ground in conversations. That means finishing your sentence even if they start talking over you. You don't need to raise your voice, but you do need to keep speaking with calm authority until you've made your point. Silence is power, but so is persistence. By continuing your thought without yielding, you send a clear signal that your words matter and you will not be erased. Second, boundaries. You have to call out the pattern if it becomes repetitive. That can be as simple as saying, "Let me finish," or "I wasn't done yet." Short, direct, and firm. You don't need to be rude, but you do need to make it clear that your voice won't be silenced. And yes, at first it may feel uncomfortable to push back. Society often teaches us, especially if you've been conditioned to be polite, to let others speak, to avoid confrontation. But there's a difference between being courteous and allowing yourself to be erased. Respect in conversation is reciprocal. It means you listen and they listen. If only one side is being heard, that is not respect, that is hierarchy, and you don't belong at the bottom of anyone's hierarchy. So, reclaiming your space in conversations is not arrogance. It's self-respect. It's refusing to let someone else dictate your worth. By silencing your voice, notice too that constant interruptions don't only happen in casual conversations. They happen in workplaces, in meetings, in classrooms, in families. And in those environments, the stakes are even higher. If your contributions are always cut off in professional settings, you risk being overlooked for opportunities, ignored in decision-making, and undervalued as a leader. This isn't just about feelings. It's about real consequences that affect your growth, your influence, and your future. That's why you cannot let this slide. Every interruption you tolerate in those settings reinforces the idea that your role is secondary, when in reality, you may be carrying insights that could change the direction of everything. The deeper truth is that people will only value your voice as much as you value it yourself. If you tolerate constant interruptions, you're silently teaching everyone around you that your words can wait, that they are optional. But when you protect your space, when you make it clear you expect to finish your thought, you train people to pause, to listen, to recognize that what you have to say is worth hearing. You don't have to demand respect with aggression, but you must earn it with consistency. Consistency in how you show up, in how you speak, in how you refuse to be erased. And if you want the most powerful tool of all, it's this: silence. Interruptions thrive on the idea that you'll yield the floor when someone else barges in. But imagine this. Someone cuts you off, and instead of shrinking, you stop, you look at them, and you wait. You don't retreat. You don't let the conversation move forward. You let the weight of silence hang until they realize they've cut you off. Then you calmly continue exactly where you left off. That single act teaches them more about respect than any lecture ever could, because silence is uncomfortable, but it demands attention. And sometimes the strongest statement you can make is to hold your ground without saying a word. The bottom line is this: constant interruptions are not harmless. They are a subtle, repetitive way of telling you that your words don't matter. And if you tolerate them, you allow people to write that story for you. But when you hold your ground, when you refuse to be erased, when you protect your voice, you reclaim the respect that should never have been negotiable in the first place. Minimizing your achievements is one of the most insidious forms of disrespect because it comes disguised in seemingly harmless words or subtle dismissals. It rarely shows up as direct insults. Instead, it sneaks in through backhanded compliments, sarcastic remarks, or quiet indifference. When you share something you've worked hard for, something you've poured effort, sweat, and discipline into, and someone brushes it off as no big deal, that's not humility on their part. It's a direct attempt to shrink you. And if you tolerate it, you allow others to dictate the value of your accomplishments instead of claiming that value yourself. That is why you must never allow anyone to minimize your achievements. No matter how small or how great they may be, think about those moments when you finally hit a goal you've been chasing. Maybe you got the promotion after years of grinding. Maybe you started a business from scratch. Maybe you committed to your health and transformed your body and mind. Or maybe you simply broke a habit you've struggled with for years. These moments are proof of your discipline, your perseverance, your sacrifice. But the moment you share it with some people, instead of celebrating with you, they respond with things like, "Oh, anyone could have done that," or "That's not really a big deal," or "Well, it's about time." And that one sentence can take the wind out of your sails, because suddenly the thing that meant so much to you feels small in the shadow of their dismissiveness. What makes this even more dangerous is how subtle it can be. It's not always a harsh insult you can easily recognize and push back against. Sometimes it's just a shrug. Sometimes it's silence when you expected congratulations. Sometimes it's a joke that makes you laugh on the surface, but sting on the inside. These small acts pile up, and if you're not careful, they begin to rewire your perception of your own worth. Instead of standing tall in your victories, you start to downplay them yourself. You stop sharing your progress because you don't want to deal with the dismissals. And before you know it, you've internalized their disrespect, shrinking your pride and diminishing your confidence. The truth is this: when people minimize your achievements, it's rarely about you. It's about them. Sometimes it's jealousy because your success reminds them of what they haven't done. Sometimes it's insecurity because your progress threatens their sense of superiority. And sometimes it's control because if they can keep you doubting yourself, they can keep you in a position where you don't rise too high. Whatever their reason, it has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their fear. But here's the catch: if you accept their minimization, if you let their words define your wins, you give them the power to rewrite your story. You must learn to stand unapologetically in your achievements, no matter how others respond. That doesn't mean boasting or seeking validation. It means owning your work, your discipline, your journey. When someone tries to brush off your progress, you don't have to argue or beg for recognition. You simply have to know within yourself that their dismissal cannot touch the reality of what you've done, because the truth doesn't need applause to remain true. If you trained for months and finally ran that marathon, no sarcastic comment can erase the miles you conquered. If you worked late nights and sacrificed comfort to build something meaningful, no shrug can take away the hours you invested. The work you've done is undeniable, and the only thing their minimization can do is convince you to forget it. So your job is to never forget. It's also worth noting that people who minimize achievements often test your reaction. If you smile awkwardly and let it slide, they'll do it again. If you start downplaying yourself in response, they'll push even harder. But if you stand steady, if you refuse to shrink, if you look them in the eye with quiet confidence that says, "I know what I've done," you disarm them. You make it clear that their disrespect has no power here. And the more you do that, the less room they have to minimize you, because disrespect only thrives where it's tolerated. In professional spaces, minimizing achievements can be especially dangerous. If your boss or colleagues dismiss your contributions, it can affect how others perceive your value. If you don't correct the narrative, you risk being overlooked for opportunities, promotions, or recognition you've earned. This doesn't mean you need to constantly defend yourself, but it does mean you must be strategic about owning your work. Keep records. Speak with confidence about what you've accomplished. Present your contributions clearly and unapologetically. Because if you don't advocate for your own achievements, someone else will rewrite them, and they won't write them in your favor. But here's the deeper truth. It's not only about how others see you, it's about how you see yourself. When you allow people to minimize your achievements, you plant seeds of doubt in your own mind. You begin to question whether your effort really mattered. You hesitate before setting bigger goals. You lower your expectations because you've been conditioned to believe nothing you do is ever enough. That is the real cost of tolerating minimization. It doesn't just steal your victories, it steals your vision of what you are capable of becoming. The antidote is self-respect. It's the decision to celebrate yourself even when others refuse to acknowledge your own growth without apology, to say to yourself, "I did that, and I'm proud," without waiting for anyone else's approval. And when you carry that energy, others notice. Those who respect you will rise with you. Those who don't will either fall away or be forced to confront their own insecurities. Either way, you win, because your success was never meant to be dependent on their validation in the first place. At the end of the day, minimizing your achievements is a subtle form of disrespect that can drain your confidence if you let it. But the solution is simple: refuse to shrink. Refuse to let anyone redefine your progress. Refuse to silence your victories just because someone else can't handle them. Your achievements matter because they represent your resilience, your persistence, and your refusal to quit. And no matter who tries to downplay them, the truth remains: you did the work, you earned the win, and no one has the authority to take that away. Passive-aggressive comments are one of the most dangerous forms of disrespect, because they're designed to cut you down without ever appearing openly hostile. On the surface, they can sound harmless, even polite, but beneath the sugarcoating lies a quiet venom, meant to belittle you, frustrate you, or undermine your confidence. These comments are like a dagger wrapped in silk. They pierce you, but if you call it out, the other person can always hide behind the excuse of, "I was just joking," or "You're too sensitive." And that's the trap. You're left second-guessing yourself, questioning whether what you felt was real, while they walk away having planted doubt in your mind. That is why passive-aggressive comments should never be tolerated, because every time you let one slide, you teach people that it's okay to disrespect you in disguise. Think about how they show up in everyday life. You walk into a room wearing something you feel confident in, and someone says, "Wow, you're really brave to wear that." Or you share an idea in a meeting, and a colleague smirks and says, "Oh, I didn't expect you to come up with that." Maybe you finally set a boundary with someone, and they respond with, "Well, don't worry, I'll just never ask you for anything again." On the surface, these comments sound casual, maybe even lighthearted, but their true intention is to jab at you, to make you uncomfortable, and to force you into defending yourself. The disrespect lies in the tone, in the insinuation, in the unspoken message hidden between the words. The genius of passive-aggressive comments, from the perspective of the one using them, is that they give them power without accountability. They get to deliver their insult, undermine your confidence, or make you feel small, all while maintaining plausible deniability. If you confront them, they can quickly flip the script and make you look like the problem. "Relax, I didn't mean it that way. You're imagining things. I was only trying to compliment you." This is manipulation at its core, because the goal isn't just to insult you, it's to confuse you, to put you on the defensive, to make you doubt your instincts so you're less likely to call them out the next time. And once you begin questioning your perception, they gain control over you. The danger is not in the one comment itself, but in the repetition. Passive-aggressive remarks are rarely one-time events. They're patterns, a drip of poison over time. A single sarcastic compliment might not break your confidence, but repeated little jabs, day after day, can wear you down until you start questioning your worth. They make you hesitant to speak up. They silence your ideas. They make you shrink in spaces where you should stand tall. That's why tolerating them is never an option, because allowing even one to pass unchallenged sets the stage for more to follow. The key to dealing with passive-aggressive comments is awareness. You have to learn to hear what's really being said beneath the sugarcoating. You have to trust your instincts when something feels off. Just because the words don't sound harsh doesn't mean they're not loaded. Pay attention to how you feel after the comment. Do you feel smaller, embarrassed, mocked? That's your signal, because your intuition will almost always pick up on the disrespect before your brain can rationalize it away. And once you recognize it for what it is, you can choose how to respond. Instead of being caught off guard now, responding doesn't always mean firing back with anger or calling them out publicly. In fact, the most powerful response to a passive-aggressive comment is often calm, direct clarity. If someone says, "Wow, you're really brave to wear that," you look them straight in the eye and say, "What do you mean by that?" That one simple question forces them to expose their intent. If it was truly harmless, they'll explain sincerely. But if it was meant as a jab, they'll stumble, because their power relied on you not questioning it. By calmly asking for clarity, you strip the disguise away, and once the mask is gone, the disrespect is out in the open for everyone to see. But sometimes, the strongest response is not to engage at all, because here's the truth: passive-aggressive people feed on your reaction. They want to see you flustered, confused, or defensive. When you remain unfazed, when you refuse to give their comment energy, you deny them the satisfaction. You show them that their little games have no effect on your self-worth. Silence, paired with strong body language, can be louder than any words. A steady gaze, a calm smile, and moving on with confidence communicates that their attempt to diminish you failed completely. What matters most is that you never internalize passive, aggressive disrespect. You must train yourself to separate their words from your identity. Because if you allow those hidden jabs to take root in your mind, they begin to alter how you see yourself. And once that happens, you become your own biggest critic, replaying their comments in your head and doing their work for them. The shield is self-awareness, knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you've achieved. When you are rooted in that, no sly remark can shake you, because you recognize that their comment says more about them than it ever could about you. It's also important to set boundaries. If someone in your life consistently uses passive-aggressive comments as a way to communicate, you must make it clear that you will not tolerate it. Boundaries don't need to be shouted or aggressive. They can be calm, firm, and consistent. You can say, "I don't appreciate comments like that," or, if you have something to say it directly. The point is to let them know that you see their behavior and you're not playing the game. Because once people realize their tactics won't work on you, they either adjust or remove themselves from your space. Either way, you win. Passive-aggressive comments are disrespect wearing a mask, and the mask only works if you pretend not to see it. The moment you call it out or refuse to react or stand tall in your self-worth, you strip away the disguise and reveal the weakness behind the words. And once you do, you take your power back. Because your worth is not up for debate, your confidence is not up for negotiation, and no amount of disguised disrespect has the right to make you shrink.